Okay, so.
I'm 91 today.
Yeah.
Well, that's the first question.
Yeah.
How old are you today?
She knows that answer.
Yeah. This is my grandpa. You can introduce yourself.
Oh, I see. She's
Yeah.
okay.
I'm
You're
gonna show it to
introducing
my
me.
class. Yeah.
Okay.
Go ahead.
You get to introduce yourself.
Introduce yourself,
Introduce
Jane.
yourself.
Introduce yourself.
Who are you?
Wait,
Who are you?
I'm her grandpa.
Yeah, but what's your
What's your
name?
name?
Oh, my name is Eugene Finnegan.
Okay, you're
Got that
91
right.
today, as you already said.
And what?
You're 91, as you already said.
Yes.
Yeah. So, what significant historical events happened during your life?
Many of them.
So, like what?
How many?
How about the World War II?
Mm-hmm.
Was my whole high school life was during World War II.
Mm-hmm.
That's pretty significant.
And
Yeah.
Sure is.
what else do you want to know? What
Were you
historical
alive like during the Great Depression?
was
Were
I?
you alive during the Great Depression?
Yes, we lived through it. She and I lived through it.
I
Yeah, she did. You were born.
Oh, that's his sister.
Oh, my name is Kathleen Brennan. I don't think I lived. What year was that? 20s, wasn't it?
27?
Well, I
You were
was.
born 27.
I wasn't. I wasn't.
Yeah,
I
GPA.
can't-
He's a little okay. So, what do you remember about the Great Depression?
It didn't affect me at all because I lived right through it, and I went to school and didn't pay any attention to the big. I didn't know there had been a depression until after it was over with.
Mm-hmm.
What about going to the grocery store?
Going to where?
Because you worked at the
That's a
grocery
question
store.
later.
Oh, it is. Sorry.
Yeah. What do you remember about World War II? Like, do you remember when Pearl Harbor happened?
Yes,
How did you find out about that?
I heard it on the radio, and we took time off from a history class. We didn't have a class that day. We just listened to the president speak, and we heard the reports of the World War II starting at Pearl Harbor.
Are there?
Well, was it during when World War II wasn't when there was a lot of blackouts? Maybe the fire department used or the fire that would sound the warning and stuff like that. Wasn't that during World War II?
What do you mean?
The blackouts, like the electricity you guys were trying to save
Oh, yes.
and stuff.
Blackouts.
So the rationing that took place that I was talking about wasn't the Great Depression. It was during World War II that there was rationing.
World
Yeah.
War II.
But you worked where? You worked at like
Where
the
did
grocery.
you? Yeah. Where did you work?
I worked at a fruit market.
And what did that do for you?
Nothing.
Gave money.
It just
No,
gave us
but-
a lot of it gave us a lot of food
Yeah.
What
So
and
that's
sugar,
That's how you had food,
particularly sugar,
right?
and milk,
And
coffee,
The
yeah,
staples.
and those were all rationed items, right?
ration items that
But
Yeah.
you got more
couldn't
of them.
get any
Couldn't
other
get
way.
any- Anywhere
What
other
fruit
way.
market was this?
Do you remember the
It
name?
wasn't Benedetto's, so
No, was right in the middle of Main Street.
okay. That's
The
what it
California Fruit Market.
was. Yeah, that's
The
what it
fruit
was.
market. The
California.
Italian or Tony, what's his name? Jimmy Duskis' uncle
Okay.
ran the fruit market. That's how I got the job.
So what like other jobs did you work in throughout your life?
I started my first job was that of a beekeeper. I took care of bees. Wore a mask and all the regalia, and right down State Street from our house was the beekeeper, and he grew I don't know,
Hives.
grew beers
Hives, yeah.
and made a lot of honey, and that was my first job, was taking care of those bees. And then from there I worked at a number of different jobs. Used to help our fathers dig graves that
At the
people
cemetery.
were buried in. What?
At the cemetery,
At the cemetery?
because his father worked at the church, and that's what he did. When people died, he dug the graves.
What'd you do like after that?
Nothing. I think I was a student after that. I went to high school. And during the summer, I don't remember that I did anything.
You worked with Dad.
What?
You worked with Dad.
That
Yeah.
worked with Dad.
Digging graves.
Yeah.
Work with
What'd
my
you do
father.
after high school? Like, what'd you do in college?
Well,
What did I do in
remember. Well,
college?
remember.
I did a lot of different jobs.
Remember, Grandpa graduated in 1945
40.
in high school.
My school, 45.
Which was the World War. And what did he do after high school? He enlisted.
I enlisted because that was my only way of getting an education, was knowing I was going to go into service, because we had what is known as the GI Bill of Rights. And they gave us money to be in the service, which amounted to $75 a month. And we got it by being in service. And so I joined the Army. Prior to being drafted, I would have gotten the same thing if I had been drafted, but I wasn't drafted. I was I enlisted in the Army for the shortest amount of time that I could get away with, which was 18 months. And then I went to college from the military service.
But one step back, what did you do in the Army? Where were you stationed?
Well, I was stationed in Washington, D.C. At the Finnegan building, and I was a cryptographer.
So when you go to the Spy Museum,
And you see,
there is a machine that your grandfather knows how to use because he used it to decode the math system.
I forgot a lot.
Well,
of
I'm sure
You
you've
did
forgotten
know.
how to use
I
it, but
did
you
know
used, at one point, you used those to decode the messages coming in.
I was lucky in that I was in the center of a lot of messages that came into the government. Came to the president of that time was what's his name?
FDR or Eisenhower?
Roosevelt.
Roosevelt?
No, before Roosevelt. Truman, Harry
Truman.
Truman. Harry Truman was president, and he was a good
No,
president. I
FDR.
was-
After.
After. You were there at
Harry Truman followed Roosevelt.
yeah, so you were there when Roosevelt in 1945. That was Roosevelt.
Now, you were also stationed, remember, in Fort Monmouth, if she wanted to know where else you were.
I worked in Fort Monmouth. I went to school in Fort Monmouth, and that's where I
That's New
learned to
Jersey.
be learned to be a cryptographer. But they chose me to be a cryptographer only because I had high school typing, and that was the salvation at that time, that I had typing, and that's what made it possible for me to be in the service and to be a cryptographer. The military service chose me. I didn't choose them. And I remember Mother being so concerned about me, because our house our street had a lot of Secret Service who are special police people who are employed by the federal government. And these men were all around, and they try to get information about you and your background, what you're doing, if you're in trouble or not. And my mother was concerned that I was in trouble. She thought I had done something wrong in the military service.
Because
So-
the Pentagon wants to know who's working for them, right?
Yeah.
She wanted to know who I was working for and what was
Yeah.
going on. Because all these strange people, and they would talk to everybody but my mother and father. They wouldn't talk to my parents. But they talked to all the neighbors, and the neighbors were not allowed to talk either. And in those days, when you said you couldn't talk to anybody, people didn't talk to anybody. So it wasn't until after that, she thought I was going to be arrested and thrown in jail, be subject to all kinds of military rules and regulations, because these men were around asking a lot of questions. It wasn't until afterwards, when I was assigned to be a cryptographer, that she found out that these were Secret Service men who were around getting my records straight. So I was cleared of any issues that
so that you could become
that came up at that time.
Interesting.
And as a result, I had a clean bill of health. I had nice,
You're well behaved.
well behaved, yeah. And I was very
Uncle Jim.
lucky, and that I was able to fulfill my military obligation in a year and a half. And if I had been home, I got my draft notice to be drafted for 2 years or more in the military, but I didn't have to serve that because I could turn that draft notice back to the board.
because you had already
I
served.
already enlisted and was
Served.
going in there.
Yeah.
Okay, so you better go on to the next.
Okay, so this is moving on from like historical events. Do you
Historical events. Those are historical events.
That's what she
moving
said.
on from those?
Oh,
Yeah. Do you remember how much things costed when you were younger? And you might too.
Like eggs
Probably,
and
I would
milk.
say, yeah, you'd have to say like 10 cents a dozen, 17 cents for a bag of sugar. Where
You worked
some
at the
of
store. What happened with you over there? You don't know anything?
Yeah.
we used to roll fruit. You ever seen a watermelon? You ever know what a large watermelon is?
Yeah,
Yes.
I know what a
We used to
watermelon
put them
is.
on the street and roll them down the street because the street was on an incline, and that's what we did on Sunday when we were on business in a store.
So instead of
When business was slow.
And what?
When business was slow.
Yeah, when business was slow, and it was always slow on Sunday afternoon because people didn't have any money and they couldn't buy anything, and things were expensive. At that time, and that was what we were subjected to. We just had to learn to live with that. But that's what we did for part of our recreation was
Roll the
Roll
melon.
rolling watermelons.
roll
Down
melons,
the hill.
roll melons down the sidewalks. Not in the road as you might have guessed, but
Just so you know, Katie, it's easier to roll them downhill than uphill.
and what?
It's easier to roll them downhill than uphill.
Yeah. Well, all the street was downgraded, downhill.
What's
As
the
long
next
as we
one?
went downhill,
Okay, well,
and that's what we did
Wait.
for recreation
Okay.
for some
so,
Sundays.
I was told there was a time that you bought a car and it cost more than you paid for a house. Do you remember that or no?
No.
How much
Remember,
did you buy this house
how
for?
much did you buy this
How much
house?
did you buy this house for? Yeah.
I bought this house for $13,000, I think.
Yeah. So at some point in your car buying career, you must have purchased a car.
For more than
That was
13,000.
more than
$13,000.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Almost all of them.
The
more
last
than
three
all of
cars
them.
have been. The last
Probably
three
the
cars.
one you have in
I
your
bought
garage.
a lot of old cars or secondhand
Right,
cars.
but not now.
But not now.
No.
I think when I was in high school, what was your mortgage when I was in high school in 1980?
$75.
Yeah, $75 was your
A month.
mortgage a month when I was in high school in the 1980s.
I don't know if you were in high school at
Oh,
that
yeah.
point.
I was.
She was either. Or she was either.
Yeah, yeah.
But that's how much our mortgage was, $75, because I had the DI Bill of Rights. I took options on everything I could,
Full advantage.
and
Well, then you got your college.
I had the
4 years of
government
college.
pay for everything that they possibly could pay for. I wore all my military uniforms to school because then I didn't have to buy any clothes. I just used my military uniforms, as most of the students at that time did,
At St.
because they were
Lawrence?
all ex-military.
At St. Lawrence?
Yeah,
Is that the college?
St. Lawrence University, yeah. That's
yeah.
where he went to school.
And all the students at that time who were male and some females, but mostly males, wore their uniforms all the time because that was the only clothes. That was the clothes of easy for them, of little expense, and our $80 or $85 a month that they would give us for being in service paid for that.
And can you explain what the DI Bill of Rights is?
The GI.
GI Bill of Rights is?
Yes, it was my way of getting a free education. And they gave me money every month. The government did, because I had been in service. And with that money,
you paid for your education.
Got my education. Paid my tuition and room and board. My room and board was home, but it did give us a little bit. Did give me a little bit.
What else?
Can you stop for a second?
I guess that's it. So, yeah.
All right, say thank you.
Thank you, G-Pa.
Thank you.
Thank you, Aunt Kathleen.